My name is Paula Walters, and I am a survivor. And there's a couple things that I want to share with you. 700,000 children annually will be abused. 5 children will die today from abuse. And in their lifetime, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will be at the hands of severe physical abuse. Why does that matter to me? Because I suffered those types of abuse. I suffered child abuse at the hands of my father. Physical, psychological, and verbal abuse became part of my everyday life. It became so normal that as I grew up, that's what I expected. That's what I knew as normal. My dad routinely called me his nickname, which was Porky. He would often joke around about taking me to the slaughterhouse and selling me per pound. And that was normal. I thought that there was nothing wrong with that. And as I grew up, it's like I picked men who did those same things, that acted like my dad, because it was normal. And when I would pick men that weren't like that, it's like I felt out of place, to the point where I would instigate fights because I needed that constant chaos of the up and down, the cycles of abuse, the normal relationship that everyone else strives for, wasn't me. I couldn't handle that. I couldn't live there. And so I continued that for a decade. After I left home in 2006, I found myself being one of what society calls those people. I became a domestic violence victim. It was near fatal strangulation. I ended up in a trauma center, and over the next week after that incident, my injuries got so bad that they got rid of the misdemeanor charges and upped them to felony charges because I couldn't even swallow for the next week. I had petechiae on my neck and in my head, which is a sign that only 15% of women get when there's strangulation. And so it was a clear-cut sign that my life almost came to an end that night. I attempted suicide. I was drinking more than ever. I was working more than ever, and I was searching for something, and I had no idea what I was searching for. And then, in the end of 2017, the big picture finally showed. I rear-ended a car, and I went to my doctor, and I said, there is something wrong with me. And I had actually asked her to admit me to the psych unit. And she said, no, Paula, let's get an MRI. And it was the first MRI I had ever had. And it was found that I had traumatic brain injury. I had injury diffuse throughout my brain. And it was found that it was most likely from the strangulation. And so over the last couple of years, I've got to slowly recover. I'm getting out of the need for this, and now I want this. And I've learned that my dad did the best he could because he was abused as well. But I've also got to the point where I've had to say, it stops with me. There are invisible injuries that we don't realize that happen to children. And so when I talk about all of these children, these 700,000 of children that are abused every year, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about abuse. We talk about traumatic brain injury when it comes to the NFL and when it comes to falls and car accidents. But what about abuse? 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men at the hands of severe abuse. What's happening to them? Like, what about their brain injuries? What about their PTSD? What about their recoveries? We got to make this part of our everyday conversation, because these victims of abuse, if they don't address it, they continue the cycle. And so then, like me, they'll continue looking for other people to abuse or to be abused by, and then their kids, and then their kids. So this generation needs to stand up and say, it stops with us. Let's start taking care of our children. Let's start addressing child abuse and domestic violence. I want to sit down and talk to people about abuse and how to triumph over trauma. So bring me in and let's have this conversation. I would love to speak to your group.